Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 19th regular board meeting and call the meeting to order. We could begin by all rising and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you to everyone for attending this evening. We would like to share our condolences with Mr. Doug Eastwood and his family. They had a death in the family, so he will not be joining us this evening. Therefore, I'm presiding over the meeting. Mr. Chambers, roll call, please.
Mr. Callan. Here. Mr. Ross. Here. Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Eastwood. Thank you.
First item on tonight is to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 15th and the minutes from the June 5th work session. Can I get a motion to approve those? Or first off, are there any questions or modifications regarding those minutes? Motion, please.
A motion that we approve those two meeting notes.
I'll second that.
Mr. Callan.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross. Aye. Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any additions, removals, or modifications to this evening's agendas? As you notice, we have had a change. There will be two separate consent agendas, one with the treasurer's items and then one with the superintendent's action items. If there's no questions or comments, making a motion to approve the consent agendas.
I move that we accept the agendas.
I'll second.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Callan.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Several items I wanted to cover with my communications this evening. First is with the July Board of Education meeting. We had mentioned in our last work session that we needed to adjust some dates due to people being out of town and summer schedules. Want to make sure everybody knew that the work session is scheduled for July 10th at 6:30, and that'll be held at the central office. I also do want to note that for the work sessions, we are looking at some other locations for the upcoming school year. So that may be our last time at the board office. The regular meeting in July will be on July 25th. I do want to note that that is a Tuesday as opposed to a Monday. That'll also be at 6:30, and that'll be here in the distance learning lab. At this time, I would like to invite Dr. Kwolek up to the front to do a brief presentation on Registration Gateway.
Thank you. I wanted to let everyone know about a new registration software we have for the district. So it's going to serve two purposes. First is to allow us to provide online registration for all new registrants. But the second purpose is it's going to replace Form Share, which is our current method for parents to update their registration software. So on the website, if you go under quick links right now, Amy Busby has been nice enough to provide the two quick links, and I wanted to just briefly show everyone. There's two links. One is Registration Gateway Update for New Parents, and this is the screen that new parents will see when they register. You would still call our office, 330-636-3100, and we can walk you through the process. But tonight I wanted to just spend a few minutes on the second site, which is for our current parents. So just briefly, currently parents have to log into Blackboard and wait. It's a 24-hour wait period to get your username and password. So with our new software registration gateway, parents are able to find this link on the website, and as you'll see to the right of the site, we clearly outline what the login is. So there's no wait for a username and password. The login is your youngest child's school lunch ID, which your kids should know because they punch in to purchase their lunch. But if you have any questions, again, you can call us at 636-3100. And then the password is your youngest child's birthday. So again, two things that should be accessible for you at home. There's no longer a need to log into Blackboard to update your information. So we're requesting that parents, as soon as possible, go to the website and update their registration information. We looked into this and for the past year have been working on our site and getting it ready for this launch. And we're sharing tonight at the board meeting kind of a soft launch for the process. But we'll be doing some updates to parents through the all-call software, and also principals will be updating parents in order to let them know about this new process. It's much more user-friendly for parents than our current process, and it also allows for integration with our current data management systems, which is something we were looking for to save secretaries' time and staff time in the buildings. So again, on our Medina Bees website, if you go under quick links and then registration gateway, information update for current parents, and then once you go to the screen, it gives you what your login and password are, which would be your youngest student's lunch ID and then your youngest student's birthday, and it explains to you the date format, which is month, day, and year. And then if you have any questions, again, you can reach out to our registration office at 636-3100. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Just a couple things I'd like to point out about the registration gateway, and thank you, Dr. Kwolek, for your presentation. The information that we receive from parents through registration gateway is extremely important because it's not only their contact and home information for registration purposes and contact purposes, but it also includes their emergency medical information as well. And our building principals will be working diligently with families this summer and into the school year to ensure that we have all students registered within the system, so that if there is an emergency, we have the appropriate contacts. The third item that I'd like to present to you, summers is a busy time for projects and updates around the district with our facilities, and John Burkhart is going to give you an update of what projects are going to be occurring over this summer.
You probably have noticed our field turf's been completely removed, and they are going to be here Monday to install the pad system. And then Wednesday they'll be in to begin to install the actual turf surface, and they anticipate that'll be about a 2-week process. So I invite everyone to go to our website. I know you guys have already had a chance to look at the rendering, but it's on our website if anyone from the community wants to look and see how the new field will look. That's coming along real well. The lighting project in there, as you recall, we have a switchgear issue in there where the lighting controls are being revamped. Basically, we're going to put a web-based lighting control system in there so we can schedule the stadium lighting to come on and off through the internet. So that project is underway. They've brought the material down. They're starting that project. The other big project this summer that's on the agenda tonight is our paving program. We're going to do the main entrance loop to the high school here. That'll be repaved. That's off of Union Street. We'll be doing the service drive that goes back around AI Root Elementary, or AI Root Middle School. At Heritage Elementary, we're doing the playground. And then the transportation lot is the other really large section of paving that we need to address. We've got a lot of areas that are dipped, and we've actually got a small river running through there with a bridge. We're going to get rid of all that and just get it straightened up out there. The tennis court bids came in above the bid threshold, and we only received 1 bid. So we're a little disappointed with that, but we are rebidding that project right now, and we are going to be talking to at least 2 of the major tennis court experts in the paving industry. We're going to make sure they try to get their bids in this time. They didn't bid last time. A lot of other projects around the district that are smaller. like the sprinkler heads in our high school gymnasium, we're putting, it seems kind of minor, but it is somewhat expensive. We're putting covers over those because they've been exposed since that gym was renovated. And if a lacrosse ball would hit it or something, we would have a sprinkler head go off. In the Performing Arts Center, replacing the lighting console down there. We're going to do some band equipment like we did last year. We are going to be doing some band storage systems over at Claggett. The metal doors in the gymnasium, the exit doors, those are badly corroded. Those are all going to be replaced. The locker room door off the men's locker room. The bus loop doors that enter into the building are going to be redone this summer, as well as there's another door that's really bad down by the elevator. That door set will be replaced. At Garfield, we're going to finish the cubbies that we've been doing every summer. We've been kind of phasing that in, so we have 6 more classrooms to do. Those are scheduled to be done this summer. Over at Fenn Elementary during spring break, we had our electricians go in and do electrical lines into each classroom. And we just finished, I think we're just finishing that project right now, where we put 2 ceiling fans in each classroom, and our own maintenance department did the finish work as far as taking the power from the doorway, putting the junction boxes in, and installing 2 ceiling fans. And it seems to be moving air pretty good in those rooms, so we're going to follow the same plan we followed last summer with getting the air handler started up early in the morning so it brings in that cooler air, have those ceiling fans then to help circulate air in there. Blake Elementary, there's wooden benches all around the property that unfortunately the bees have started to bore into, and it's creating a problem. So those are going to be replaced with more of a material that the bees won't be attracted to. So we're still finalizing what material we're going to use for those benches. And I think that pretty much covers...
John, did you want to talk about the Garfield cupola?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's another major one. The cupola at Garfield, which is the structure that's on the very top of the building. The building's on the historical register, so it's something we need to, and it's right off the square, so obviously we need to maintain that building. That hasn't been addressed in many years. Years ago, we had it lifted off with a crane and reworked and then reinstalled. Well, currently the base is really badly rotted. There's some structural issues with it, so that went out for bid, and it's on your agenda tonight for approval. And that's to rework that entire cupola so that it's solid again and basically refinish, so we'll get another 15-20 years out of it.
As part of the facilities committee, we've been talking about all these projects, and that one is one that's really weird. You mentioned it in passing, but the real reason for doing it is because we have to. It's part of the historical,
right?
It's part of the rules with having a historical building. With the facilities committee, we were like, you got to be kidding me. How much is this going to cost to just take care of what looks like a ornament at the top of the school? But it's because of the requirement of the look and the picture and the whole thing with Garfield. Is that correct?
And the history of Edina, and yes, and obviously we don't want to just let it go, and with the kind of winds we get around here, we don't want that to end up on the ground, so it's something we need to address. Okay, thank you. The only other item on the agenda tonight is the rec center track is on there, and that comes from the shared funds, so the city and the school district will share in that cost, and the bids came in really good for that, so that's also a recommendation. So thank you.
I have one more question about that one too, if you don't mind, John. It's already monies that we have approved out of the $100,000 that we both put in. Is that correct?
That's
just
correct.
The fact that it's such a big dollar item.
Because it's over 25,000, we have to
do that. But it is part of. We've been doing 138 the last 5 years, but it's part of that 100 and 100.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, John. One thing I do want to emphasize is that we head through the summer. Some of these projects can shift and adjust. And one thing that I've already talked to Mr. Burkhart about is coming back in September to do a formal presentation with pictures on the completion of all the projects and to explain any adjustments that may have occurred over the course of the summer as the projects were completed. Few announcements. Save the date, Parent Ed Camp. We are going to be running our Parent Ed Camp for the second year in a row, and it is scheduled for September 27th from 6 o'clock to 8:30 at Medina High School. Last year, we ran the parent ed camp before school started. After running a survey following that, the feedback we received is that parents would prefer to have that ed camp after the school year starts. So we'll be several weeks into the school year, and we're hoping to draw more people. Our Community Spirit Night, if you haven't seen on our webpage, is on the calendar, and it is scheduled for September 8th, I believe. September 8th, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, and that'll be a big game against Wadsworth. And finally, community chats. We will be continuing our community chats into next school year. We actually met this morning to begin scheduling those. We're going to run 5 or 6 chats similar to what we've done throughout this school year, so they'll be approximately every other month. The first one that we will be running is going to be in September, and it'll be to provide information, general information heading into the school year. And we're going to end in June just like we did this year, and that final June one is going to be to revisit our strategic plan, share where we're at in meeting what's outlined within the plan, as well as some of our strategies and goals for moving forward. I will provide the actual dates and locations at an upcoming meeting, and you can also look for those on our webpage. We will continue to run them on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. Treasurer's Communications.
Yes, good evening. With the May financials, we are looking at the district bank balance decreasing 1.61 million down to 78.76 million. General fund revenues were up by 1.3 million over last year, and expenditures were up also by 2.4 million over last year. Sales tax balance is at 3.25 million. The district spent $505,000 in May, and the bulk of that was for the COP interest payments for the bonds for Waite and Northrop. The district received $549,572 in interest. This is $118,000 above last year, all of last year. So from July through June of last year, the district is doing well. As you know, the Fed has increased the rates twice so far. They're looking at 3 times, if I recall, over the fiscal year. So we'll see how that occurs in December, or if it occurs in December, like they say. And now the general fund true days cash estimate is at 281 days. If you recall, the true days cash is basically the amount of cash we have in store to go through each day of the year, not the school year, but the calendar year. So with our balance at this point, we're 4.39 days below April and above last year by 21.53 days. Questions? Okay, now I wanted to talk to you about our year-end closing. We have a number of issues that are going to be on the agenda tonight, and they deal with the year-end closing itself. And if I could turn to that quickly, you'll see that the district has, the district has a number of issues. We have advances that are going out to not only the cafeteria again, but we have advances going from the general fund to our federal funds itself. The reason we have to make these advances to the federal funds is that all of our funds have to be in the black. The federal funds, though, are funds that run in the negative, and then the state reimburses us through the negative fund expenditures. So it's sort of a catch-22 for us at the end of the year, because we can only get up to 10% in advances from the state, and with payroll 3 times in the month of June here, we're going to have a payroll on June 30th, which makes it tough to try and get this down to the penny. So we have to do an advance from the general fund. The monies will be given back here in July once we get the monies from the federal government. We have return of advances. Last year, if you recall at this time, we advanced to the cafeteria fund, we advanced to Evolve. Well, the cafeteria fund, we advanced the $100,000. You'll see we're advancing $170,000 this year. So the cafeteria was looking at less children coming in, and so it's running in the red at this point. The Evolve return of advance, this is, I believe, 4 years ago, the board went and advanced $176,000 to Evolve. They've been returning $50,000 ever since. This is their last payment back, so they've been doing well ever since. We have fund-to-fund transfers. We have field trip accounts. Those accounts are separate from their principals' accounts. Last year and in prior years, the principals gathered the money for field trips directly into their accounts. These are actually student activity accounts, so we pulled them out into these 300 accounts. So they're paying off funds that they may still be collecting from parents over the summer and into the fall for. Transportation is, they provide services to other school districts for repair of buses and vehicles. They also provide, these payments are for parts and for labor. And since the district pays the labor for our mechanics, we are getting that monies back from the transportation. And then the sales tax, we made the payments out to the bonds for Waite and Northrop, so that money's coming back or going into the bond fund from the sales tax fund. Questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chambers, what is, it's almost $800 for teacher quality. What is that?
Teacher quality, that is a federal fund which provides funds to the district to provide professional development to teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Next item is board communications. If any of the board members would like to give updates on any of their committees that they're involved in.
I'll go real quick for the facilities committee. We actually did not have a June one because we're in the midst of all these projects. However, the first Friday in July, we will be having one of the kind of the status of all those. Even though we just heard it, we might even get a little bit of look at the turf and what they have done so far, and it's coming along fine. So that'll be Friday, July 7th at 8 a.m. And the Rec Center Advisory Committee, we had an update last week, and we had Dr. Qualick and John in there to talk about the projects that are coming up in the schools as well. Thanks.
Ron or Rob?
For what? I know our policy committee met several weeks ago, and we have another meeting, I think, later this month. And we continue to review policies, and things are going well. The legislative update, there's a lot of activity going on in the budget at the state level, and we all get those same emails from the Ohio School Board Association, and they're looking, there's been testimony that the OSBA gave down to the Senate Finance about some changes to this current agricultural use valuation, and there's some things they're concerned with there. And also on the College Credit Plus program and the use of textbooks. There's some positions that they have there with that. So there's some things they're looking at. I'm sure our local legislators are working hard to try to keep the funding levels as best they can. So hopefully we'll still be in good shape. But okay, thank you.
Thank you. Also, the Finance Committee is meeting this Wednesday at 6 o'clock at the district office. We've spent some time going over the 5-year forecast. I believe the last meeting, Mr. Chambers gave us a very good education on school funding. We've also talked a little bit about the strategic plan, funding a little bit with that. Also, I am the curriculum liaison, and I've met with Tina Cassidy and Matt Maddie. We meet monthly, and I really enjoy my meetings with them. I usually get the first look at any textbooks that are going to come before the board. And they've gone through today. Actually, we met and are starting to set up their strategies with going into the 5-year plan, which we will be voting on later today. So very exciting things. I'm really excited for all the things that's going on in the district. Thank you.
Just one last thing I wanted to mention. The city schools shared Pact agreement, and there's going to be more detailed discussion about this coming down the road, but I just wanted to make sure that the board had the heads up. We currently have a technology position that we share between the city, the television station, as well as technology over at the Pact. Over the course of the last approximately 5 to 10 years, there have been several cutbacks and reductions at the Pact for various reasons, because I think some of the positions weren't needed. I think some of it was just funding and some of the financial issues that we were facing. Well, what's happened with that situation is that the individuals in the positions at the Pact, specifically our technology person over there, has taken on a lot of extra duties and has found themselves in more of a supervisory type of role at the Pact. So there is interest coming from the city committee as well as the district committee to address that discrepancy. I know there's discussions occurring right now on the city level in terms of what that potential change could look like. Because it's a joint position, it's something that has to be approved by the school board in addition to the city. Once we have more detailed information, I will provide that to you and we'll have further discussion.
Along those lines, Ron and I sit on the Access Committee, which is for the TV, and that's one of the things that we've been talking about for months, is that Matt and him in that position and kind of what we do with that. So as far as we know, Ron, we kind of give the blessing to that, to move ahead with that, because we realize the role has changed versus the money.
Okay, I think we're ready for the treasurer's action items.
Yes, if it please the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the May 2017 Treasurer's Report. Item number 2, resolution of arrangement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution of arrangement between the local government services of the Office of the Auditor of State of Medina City School District to conduct a compilation of the Medina City Schools finances for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2017, June 30th, 2018, June 30th, 2019. Item number 3, fund-to-fund transfers. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers from Garfield Principal to Garfield Trips, from Canavan Principal to Canavan Trips, from Transportation Enterprise to the General Fund, and from Sales Tax to the COPS bonds. Item number 4, advance of funds. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following advance of funds. All of these are coming from the General Fund. They're going to the Cafeteria Fund, Title 6B, Title I, Title 1D, Preschool, Handicapped, and Teacher Quality. We have item number 5, return of advances. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following return of advances. They are all going to the General Fund from the Cafeteria Fund and from the Evolve Fund. And we have then and now purchase orders. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following then and now purchase orders. Aramark for $15,000. This is for prom, the most recent prom here back in May, early May, and then College Board for $36,900. We have spoken to the secretary at the high school and asked her to put in a estimated purchase order for next year for both these items so that they would not be appearing before the board for next year. And then finally, if you would approve the final appropriations for 2016-2017. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the final appropriations.
I just had one comment about the AP exam invoice. The money is what the money is, but it's really great that we have 441 AP tests that we're taking this year. Sounds like we've bolstered that a little bit from where we were before. So, and not that spending the money is a good thing, but spending money in this particular place is a good thing. It's great for those kids.
Agree.
Does the board have any questions or comments related to these action items? Is there any public comment or from the board, from the public? Any comments from the public or questions? Okay. If not, I make a motion to approve the treasurer's action items.
I'll second.
Yes. Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Kilhallen.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Next up are action items for the consent agenda for the superintendent.
Item number 1 is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City Schools. Normally I point out some of the significant donations that we're getting from the community. Tonight I'd like to point out some significant donations that some of our student organizations are making back to the community. $1,000 is going to St. Jude's Research Hospital from our Medina High School's Key Club. We have another donation of $1,000 to Colin Cares Cure Cancer Corporation, also from the high school Key Club. We have a donation of $3,500 going to Project Learn of Medina County from the Improv Club at Medina High School. And we also have a donation of various kitchen items to Cups Cafe and Goodwill Industries Medina retail store from the Beehive Cafe. So just as we were fortunate to receive from our community, our student groups are also giving back as well. All those funds that are being donated are through fundraisers, so those aren't directly school funds. Item number 2, class of 2017. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the list of seniors of the class of 2017 who have fulfilled and met all of the requirements for the state of Ohio in the Medina City Schools for graduation. So your action on this item will make our seniors official graduates in Medina City Schools. One thing I would like to let you know in advance that we're looking into next year is actually doing that resolution in May and putting the words pending completion of all graduation requirements as set forth by the board. That way the official graduation of those seniors will be when they're announced by Mr. Harrison and presented to the board. Number 4, award bid for the Medina City School District paving program. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to award the bid for the Medina City School District paving program to Crossroads Asphalt Recycling, Inc. in the amount of $5,021,631.80. Thank you. And I'm going to jump back to item number 3 here, which is the Alliance for High Quality Education. The Alliance is a statewide group of high-performing school districts that we work together with our legislators. It's an advocacy group to advocate what's best for our schools and our community. It's extremely important that we have a role in this organization, especially now that our local Senate representative is the Senate president. So I think it's an ideal time. So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution, membership in Alliance for High Quality Education for the 2017-2018 school year. And I believe this is going to be our second year membership with this organization.
I have a question about that, Mr. Sable. Is that amount the same? Does it stay the same every year, $3,500?
Yes, The amount has remained the same.
And I think it's our third. Yep.
Number 5, award the bid for Garfield Elementary School cupola project. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to award the bid for the Garfield Elementary School cupola project to CCI Commercial Construction in the amount of $65,630. I do want to mention, I think Mr. Burkhart already said this, but this actually came quite a bit below bid. So we're happy with the bid that we're presenting to you this evening. Number 6, reject the bid for Medina High School Tennis Court Resurfacing Project. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the resolution to reject the bid for the Medina High School Tennis Court Resurface Project submitted by Perrin Asphalt Company in the amount of $219,347,000. Again, as John had mentioned, we received a single bid for this project, so we are going to send it out to bid again. We want to make sure that we get asphalt companies that specialize in tennis courts, as well as a more competitive bid in place. Number 7, membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 2017-2018 school year, and this is a yearly thing we do. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution permitting the Medina City School District's membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 2017-2018 school year. Number 8, amendment to the Educational Service Center of Medina County Service Agreement for the 2017-2018 school year. Just as a quick explanation, the reason why this is on the agenda for approval is because we took a different approach with our service agreement with the ESC for the upcoming school year. Typically in the past, and this is normal, there's been some flexibility put within the original contract to allow us to go out to the ESC for more services if necessary. We tightened that up this year, so when we are in need of additional services, such as with item number 8, we'll be coming back to the board for approval to add that into the contract. So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution to amend the service agreement between the Medina City School District and the Educational Service Center of Medina County to provide 2,000 hours for English as a second language services for Medina City School District students with limited English proficiency effective for the 2017-2018 school year. And this is due to an increased enrollment in students with English as a second language. Number 9, first reading. We have one policy to present for first reading. I'd like to emphasize that this is not for adoption. This is for review over the course of the next month, where we can have ongoing conversation as well as receive feedback from the public. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the first reading of the following revised policy, and it is 4120.09, which relates to volunteers within the school district.
Mr. Sable, will we be able to talk about that at our work session sometime in there? It's just people, I've gotten some emails about people's concerns that volunteers will be turned off a little bit and not be as readily available. And I think the idea is great of making sure that it's right, but I know there are people that are worried about, what am I going to do about my volunteers now from a timing standpoint? So we might have to work on categories.
Yep, definitely. Not only will we have further discussion at an upcoming work session, but the policy committee that meets regularly did have initial review of this policy, and will be meeting again to do a second review of the policy prior to it being recommended for approval. I do want to make the board aware that we have been putting quite a bit of work through Mr. Shields as well as Ms. Busby into meeting the requirements of this policy. This policy itself actually has fairly minor changes in it. It's more of an update. We are working on being more diligent in making sure that we follow this policy in terms of fingerprinting, as well as recommending volunteers to the Board of Education, and that's of course for the safety and security of not only our students but the volunteers as well. In addition to that, Ms. Busby and I have had several conversations in regards to volunteers. I am aware that in particular our summer volunteers can be a concern that are starting the very beginning of the year, and we will be making efforts through our communications department to go out to those volunteers and help them through this process to try and ensure that we get them all approved in a timely manner.
And I don't know if there's certain volunteers that may not fall under this policy that would be like maybe working. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're at a sports game and they're helping to sell for the boosters, so I don't know. There's quite a few of those types of volunteers that maybe aren't directly working with children so much, but you know.
You bring up a very good point, and I think that's been a point of question as well. And we'll work on getting some more communication out about that, maybe even getting something up on our website. But volunteers that need to be board approved are volunteers that are working with us for a chunk of the school year, for a quarter, for a semester, for the entire school year. It's an individual that will be working directly with students and potentially supervising students without a school employee being with them. So a PTO parent who comes in and offers help in the class or brings in cupcakes will not have to get board approved to do that. Whereas an individual that comes in and does math tutoring throughout the course of the year in one of our buildings would need board approval on fingerprinting.
That's mostly the question, Sab. I had 3 emails about it because I don't know whether it was this policy or people are starting to hear about it from other people, but it's more teachers who say, hey, we need parents to volunteer for X, Y, and Z, especially in September, and they're new parents, and they're saying, whoa, I have to go through some kind of a fingerprinting. And I mean, I think the concern is just normal day-to-day, we need your help. What are the different categories of what they have to do to make sure this policy is clean?
Number 10 is policies for consideration for second reading. These policies were presented to the board last month. They've also been reviewed twice by the policy committee. So this is with possible adoption pending a board vote. It is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with possible adoption the following new, revised, and replacement policies as revised bylaw. I do want to point out that the bulk majority of these are simple updates within the policies, and that's why you see so many at once. And literally with some of these policies, it can be as little as a simple word change in the entire policy, but we want to make sure we're keeping them up to date. Number 11 is the Medina City Schools 5-year strategic plan. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Medina City Schools 5-year strategic plan as we presented at a special board meeting. We also had our formal presentation to the community at the library. I do have to say, considering what a beautiful day it was and that Little League and soccer and everything else is going on, I was impressed by the amount of parents and staff members that we had come out for the presentation. The feedback that we received was simply outstanding, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation as we move forward to implement the strategic plan. Number 12 is textbooks materials adoption for the 17-18 school year. These were also presented to the board for review at our last regular board meeting and have been available to the public as well for public review. These include the middle school and high school math books, teacher materials, and manipulative, I can speak, kits. Number 13 These are books for ELA Plus class instruction. So these books are specifically geared towards class reads, which is mainly 8th grade students. They're gifted students as well as honors students. And it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the books for ELA Plus class instruction as attached. I would like to point out that there are 2 books that will only be utilized with parent permission, and those are the Orphan Train as well as Unwind, and that's due to the content or nature of those books.
Mr. Sable, there will be alternate books available as well if parents do not want their children to read those, correct?
Absolutely. We'll have alternate books and assignments available. Item 14 is a field trip for the 2017-2018 school year for this upcoming school year next summer. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trip in compliance with Policy 2340 for this 2017-2018 school year. This is an educational trip to Italy that is sponsored by our Latin teachers. And is for our Latin students, and this is a trip that these students have done in the past. It is completely funded by the families who will be participating in the trip, and it occurs over the summer, so there will be no school time that these students will miss. And of course, this is pending interest by the students in participating. And number 15, field trip for the 2018-2019 school year, and this is actually 2 years out the following summer. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trip in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 2018-2019 school year. And this is for a student trip to China. This is intended for our Chinese students. This is also a trip that we've done before. We actually have students that have recently returned from China on a trip this year. So typically these trips occur every other school year. And I do want to share with you that they would like to come and present to the board at some point. I know they brought back gifts for the board. I thought it would be a good idea to save that for once we head into the school year. Number 16 is a stipend payment. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Miss Tammy Patrick in the amount of $150 from Baldwin-Wallace University for being a cooperating teacher for a Baldwin-Wallace University student teacher during the spring semester of 2017. And number 17 is some additional stipend payments. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payments to Ms. Angie Mormon, Ms. Laura Frawley, and Ms. Jennifer Scott in the amount of $320 each, and the stipend payments to Ms. Bridget Chilik and Ms. Sarah Dutton in the amount of $160 each for the University of Akron for being cooperating teachers for University of Akron student teachers during the spring semester of 2017. We have several service agreements for number 18. The majority of these service agreements are required in order for us to meet the needs of students that are on IEPs. They also include some summer extension services as well. One exception is the Solkowski and Associates, which is a leadership presentation for our high school students, and that is being funded through our student council. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 2017-2018 school year.
Mr. Sable, I have a compliment and also a question about those. Years ago, we didn't have on these service agreements how many people it affected, what the cost was, and whether or not it increased or not. And I really appreciate everybody doing that, Dr. Kwalik and Mr. Kidd, et cetera. But I also wanted to There were a couple of them, most of them were holding steady. There was a couple that seemed like there were some increases in wage rate of these individuals, and I just, as a reminder, I think it's something that we definitely need to be cognizant of. To maybe we're reminding them of that, and I'm sure we are, but just as a, at least from where I sit, I think that's a good idea. As we try to hold our budget where it is, it's important on these as well.
And we'll continue to provide that information, and 19 is going to be some other service contracts related to special education as well. And one of the challenges with special education and funding is it's hard to predict because it's based off of enrollment as well as changes in annual IEPs, individual educational plans. So that can have adjustment, but for sure there's the potential of increases as well. I can tell you that our administrators really use their due diligence to try and ensure that they're running cost effectively. I know Mr. Kidd in particular has been working with Akron Children's and our student nurses nursing program within the district to make sure that those costs are kept reasonable, as well as costs that we have with Summit County ESC for audiology services. And Mr. Kidd had reached out to them as well because of a change in those costs, and that's not on the agenda tonight, but that'll be coming. And 19, as I had stated, some additional special education services, and some of these also include ESY, which is extended school year services. Special ed students, as determined by their IEP, some of them are eligible for extended school year to make sure that they are keeping up with pace with their academics. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 2017-2018 school year with extended school year services if needed for the summer of 2018. So that's for this coming school year as well as into next summer. Already preparing for the next school year. Personnel. Busy time of year for personnel. Our busiest time of year is going to be the next couple of months. You can see we have quite a bit of items listed here under personnel. I'm not going to run through every single one of these, but there are some of these that I would like to highlight. The first is the very first one on there, which is for a substitute teacher agreement. This is for a long-term substitute for a guidance counselor that is going on maternity leave. And what we'd like to do is bring back a retired guidance counselor who has worked in the district, who can step right into that role and fill those shoes for that period of time. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate Kelly Knapp. Kelly almost was, the associate principal over at AI Root Middle School. She has submitted her resignation because she has accepted a head principal position within the Buckeye local schools, and she's going to be serving as principal of their intermediate building, which is a 456 building. So I think that's a great move for her. Also, we have a administrative appointment recommendation, and Ryan and his wife are here tonight. I'd like to introduce Ryan O'Cole. He's being recommended for Director of Technology effective August 1st, 2017. He has his master's degree from the University of Akron. I am thrilled to have Ryan join our central office team. I think he's going to be filling a hole that's been needing some attention. He not only brings in technology skills, where he served as the technology director at Black River for the last 10 years? 11 years. So for the past 11 years, but prior than that, he's a classroom teacher, math teacher. So he has the technology and the instructional side of things, which is exactly what we were looking for, that bridge to be paved between the academics and implementation of the technology. I would like to publicly thank Harvey Ballas for his work with the district. He is a private contractor that we've been working with, and I had requested for his contract to be extended slightly earlier this year so he could work on some organizational items within our technology department. So he has done a nice job in getting things in an orderly fashion for Ryan to step in and really hit the ground running. I will eventually be recommending a new contract to Harvey Ballas at an upcoming board meeting. That'll be a reduced contract. We won't need the same kind of services now that we'll hopefully have Ryan here on board. But we'll still need Harvey's expertise in, he's an IT guy, so working in the background with a lot of the computer stuff that I don't understand. We also have several teachers that are being appointed. Andrea Booth is kindergarten at Waite. Teresa Horton is an intervention specialist at Root. Larry Laird, social studies teacher at Claggett. And Kristen Malinke, a 5th grade teacher at Garfield Elementary School. I can tell you our HR department and our principals have done an outstanding job finding high quality candidates. I've had the opportunity to meet all these individuals, and I think they're going to be real assets to our district. I would also like to point out that Larry Laird is also our new high school football coach who was approved a few months back. We had a social studies opening in the district due to Mr. Leatherman accepting the administrative position at Evolve, and he interviewed for that position, and I'm thrilled to have our head football coach being able to also teach in the position, because I think that's vital on both ends, in the classroom and on the field as well. Also on here, we have several co-curricular appointments, and again, these are a yearly thing that appear on the agenda. Also, we have administrative substitutes for the 2017-2018 school year as listed. And the reason why I wanted to point this out is because I want to make clear that we very rarely get substitutes for administrators. Our principals do a nice job covering for each other if they're out. In terms of the central office, we do the same thing at central office. We really work collaboratively together so we can cross over. However, in the event that there's an emergency, such as somebody going on an emergency medical leave or something like that, we'd like to have some people approved who we could quickly bring in case of a crisis or emergency. And the last thing I want to go through with personnel is we have several resignations due to retirements, and I'd like to say a few words about each of these individuals. The first are support staff. Steve Fields is a Medina alumni. He's retiring with 17 years of service as a custodian with Medina City Schools. Steve has worked at only 2 buildings in the district during his time. He worked many years after being hired at Claggett Middle School, the building he graduated from, and then has spent the last couple of years working at Waite Elementary. Steve has known Mr. Waite his entire life and was proud to be associated with 2 buildings that he had a personal connection with while employed at the Medina City Schools. Gail O'Brien, she is preschool. Gail has spent her entire career in the district working in the preschool program. She's retiring as a paraprofessional. She's been with the district for 28 years with preschool students and as a paraprofessional. The preschool, over the course of her time, has moved 4 different times, and Gail has stayed with the preschool at every step of the way. And Gail will be joining her husband, a recent Medina City School teacher retiree, in retirement. Next is Roger Ranker, retiring from the maintenance department with 30 years of service. Roger can do and fix anything. His knowledge and skills will be missed in the department. His fun-loving sense of humor will also be missed. Roger also has a spouse, Denise, who retired ahead of him from the district. Denise is a former bus driver, and I know she'll be welcoming Roger into retirement with lots of trips to their cabin in Michigan. Mary Lou Brock. Mary Lou will retire on September 1st, 2017. Mary was hired September 1st, 1987, and will have exactly 30 years of official service to the district. Unofficially, she has many years with the district as a parent volunteer. Her 3 children all graduated from Medina. Mary Lou served as a paraprofessional at Garfield Elementary the majority of her career, but has spent the last few years working at Waite Elementary. Mary Lou's heart and smile will be missed by both students and coworkers. In her days at Garfield, it was rumored she spent more on students in need than she was making working as a paraprofessional. We also have 2 certified retirements. Betty Carlisle. Betty is retiring from Medina City Schools with 21 years of service as a first grade teacher at Heritage Elementary School. While teaching in Medina, Betty received the honor of being both a National Board Certified Teacher and a State of Ohio Master Teacher Designee. Betty's work ethic and high level of professionalism will be missed at Heritage Elementary School. And Pam Shirk. Pam is retiring from the district with 22 years of service. Pam was originally hired as a language arts teacher at the middle school level, and then spent the last 18 years serving as a media specialist at the middle school level. Pam is passionate about the library and media services and worked tirelessly to advocate on behalf of our media centers. She also served in many extra roles, such as with the LPDC committee, Honeycomb committee, and department chair for the library. A couple additional words on Pam, because I've had an opportunity to work more closely with her throughout the course of the year. But I really admire her passion for the students of Medina City Schools, as well as library and media specialists, and I appreciate her enthusiasm. We wish all these employees the best in retirement and thank them for a combined 148 years of service to the school district. Thank you.
I'm blown away by 148 years. That's quite a lot. So thank you to all of our retirees and all of our staff. And welcome to our new staff as well. Thank you. Congratulations. So I'm going to try, I have a couple chances to get this right tonight with our couple different consent agendas.
Right.
So,
I'll make a recommendation, or make a motion that we approve this consent agenda that Mr. Sable just went over.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Now, is there any public comment? I apologize, board comments first.
If I could just chime in, I'd like to congratulate Ryan. He's been a fixture in the community for many, many years, and the family is great to know. And Kate, her family's been involved for many, many years in Medina, and her dad served on the board. So we welcome you to being our Director of Information Technology, and it'll be nice to work with you. So thank you. Thank you.
I also wanted to chime in with thank you to all the resignees and all the time they put into the district, and also Kelly Knapp. I know a few years ago she did a lot of stuff, including filling in as a principal for a long time, and so I think that job sounds like she'll be able to nail it. So congratulations to that whole group. I did have one suspect though in the fill-ins for the administrative substitutes. The guy named Mr. Knight. I think he'd be a good choice.
Just one comment. There's a lot of stuff on this agenda, and you know, summer's the break for the kids, but definitely you have not taken any breaks, and it's much appreciated. All the work you guys are doing, putting into this, not only the agenda, but keeping the district running. And I appreciate you and Dave, Mr. Chambers, your open door, keeping us informed, encouraging us to come and visit, and answering questions, emails, phone calls, because I always get answers. They never have to weight, and I appreciate that. And that includes Dr. Chris and Paul and John and Amy and Jim Shields, everybody. It's much appreciated. How you guys, it's like a machine. It just won't stop. So much appreciated. And Ryan?
Thank you. Any comments from the public on these items only? Okay, if not, Mr. Chambers, we have a roll, please.
Mr. Callen.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The next action item is the award bid for the Medina Community Recreation Center track resurface project.
Great. Before I move on, I just want to congratulate Ryan again. I want to give him a round of applause. I know you've been a part of the Medina community for a long time, but I can tell you from experience that tonight's pretty special when you get to be a part of the Medina City Schools team. It's a pretty special place to work. We've got great kids, great staff, so welcome aboard. Several individual action items. The first is a resolution to award the bid for the Medina Community Recreation Center track resurface project. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to award the bid for the Medina Community Recreation Center track resurface project to Dynamic Floor Construction in the amount of $34,251.
I'll make a motion to approve this action item.
I'll second it.
Questions or comments from the board?
I have a quick one. Thank you for separating this out. As I'm a independent contractor at the rec center, I will need to abstain, but I'm all for it. The track needs resurfaced, and this is a good thing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this will be completed during the shutdown?
Yeah, there's a 1 week or 10-day shutdown at the end of July / beginning of August, and this is going to be done at that time. Anybody who's been there lately has seen the blue coloring of the old surface coming through, and there's some divots, and this is to fancy it all up and make it right again.
Any comments from the public? If not, roll call, please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Callen.
Abstain.
Thank you.
The next action item is personnel. It is recommended that the board accept the following recommendation. Tyler Skidmore as choir director, men's chorus, show choir director, and showtime director. And this is a co-curricular appointment.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Second?
Comments from the board? I would like to make a comment. I requested this be broken out. Most of these two policies relating to the employment of superintendent and treasurer are mainly updates. Oh, I apologize.
This one is Tyler. Rob.
Any comments from the public, please? If not, roll, please.
Mr. Callen.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Abstain.
And Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
I was so excited by Mr. Skidmore's appointment to his co-curriculars that I jumped ahead here. We're on action item I, policies for consideration. It is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with possible adoption, the following revised policies. Again, these policies were presented at our last regular meeting for a first reading and have been reviewed multiple times by our policy committee. They are policies 1220, employment of superintendent, as well as policy 1310, employment of treasurer.
I'll make a motion that we approve these policies.
I'll second.
Board comments? Okay, I have a board comment for this one. Apologize. These are the two policies, employment of superintendent, employment of treasurer, are mostly updates as needed. However, there is one provision that's included that is requiring that the superintendent or treasurer maintain his or her principal residence within the district. And I believe that this provision limits the pool of quality candidates that we may have in the future. And I therefore do not agree with this policy. I don't think that we should be limiting ourselves to the talent that's out there by making a requirement that live within the district. I love living within the district. Medina is a great place to raise a family, to live and work, but I don't want to have to make any candidates uproot their family to seek employment here, and I don't want us to have a limited pool of quality candidates because of that requirement. Any other comments?
And I served with you, Becky, on the committee that reviewed the policies. The reason we had to update the policies, I think, was about a check for terrorist list for the superintendent and the treasurer, and so that's why we updated. We, by leaving the residency requirement in there, we're not changing the policy from that standpoint that's been there for many years. And I understand your point. I think it's one of the it's a debatable item that we can debate, and I think the way if we adopt this one tonight, it gives the board the ability to make an exception, and I think that we have that situation with our superintendent right now. We're very pleased with the relationship that the board has with our superintendent, but I think it just sets it sets a standard that it's our desire, or I guess we love Medina so much, so we can't imagine anybody that wouldn't want to live in Medina. So I think that's kind of the way we look at it, and kind of operate that way. And we sure wouldn't want to encourage Mr. Chambers to move to another district if we change the policy, which I'm sure he wouldn't. But anyway, so it was a debatable item, and that's what boards are for. We're there to wrestle with issues and not always agree, and hopefully disagree nicely as we've done. So anyway, I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Callen.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
No.
Thank you.
And item K is our last personnel item. It is recommended to the Board of Education that you approve the following co-curricular appointments as listed below. All of these are girls basketball appointments.
I'll make a motion to accept these.
I'll second that.
Any comments from the board?
Yep. This one's separated because I'm a volunteer coach with this group, and they're great people and good coaches, but because I'm on the same team with them, I thought it would be appropriate to abstain.
Thank you. Comments from the public? Roll call, please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Callen.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks like we've made it through all of our action items. Now it's time for public participation. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. All comments are to be directed to the Board of Education and not any one individual. comments shall focus on areas that have not been previously been brought forward to the board by individual or associated group, and comments will occur before each vote of action items.
Mark Kuhar, Shorewood Drive, Medina. In looking at the latest financials, it looks like that the the line item that has been set up for drug testing is now at somewhere around the $5,400 mark out of the $6,000 that was allotted. First, when will we be getting a report to the community as to how the drug testing program went this year for the first go-around in the school year? What sports were tested and how many positive tests we actually did receive out of the number of tests that we made. In addition, how are we funding the drug testing for next year?
Just to answer a few of your questions, we've actually been talking about doing a presentation, and Mr. Hotkey is going to be joining us here either before the summer's out or at the very beginning of the school year to do a presentation on the 2016-2017 school year and the drug testing. We are fortunate to continue to receive a donation to cover the drug testing into the upcoming school year, this just as we have in the past. The same organization is also covering the costs for Wadsworth, who recently introduced drug testing, if I'm not mistaken, not only for athletics, but for all students as well. Just off the cuff, I don't believe we had any students that tested positive. The feedback that I have received is that many of our students appreciate the testing as a preventative measure and kind of able to blame the testing for staying away from stuff that they don't want to do. And I have to be honest with you, I was leery coming into the situation with the drug testing, but I've seen nothing but positives as we move throughout the school year.
Well, thank you. We'll look forward to that report.
Thank
The
you.
name of that organization is the Adam Group. Board. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other public comments, I move that we move to executive session to consider the employment, compensation of a public employee or official, and legal matters.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Callen.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I don't believe that anyone but the board will be needing to go with us. Just the board, just board members. Okay, meeting, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate everyone's attendance.
Good job, Mrs. Parkhurst.